Hello, lovely friends. Today I want to talk about mental health, some different strategies and methods to take care of your mental health as a dancer. It's a topic that I don't feel like is talked about quite enough, but based on a lot of the messages that I've been receiving from you guys about what you want to hear on this podcast, it seems like something that you want to hear more about. And one reason this is an important topic is your mental health and your physical health are very much connected, and you need to be overall healthy to be a strong dancer. You can't just have your physical health. And also, issues that you have with your mental health can sometimes display themselves through your physical health. An example would be like I struggled with anxiety for a long time. I still kind of do. And one of the ways that my body tells me that I have some anxious feelings is I get like a stomach ache or I break out on my skin. And so taking care of your mental health is important because it's going to affect your physical health at a certain point if you let it get to that level. So let's get started. The first thing I want to talk about is a strategy I've been using for maybe 2 or 3 years now that's pretty common, and basically it's just getting your feelings and your emotions and your thoughts out of your own head and out somewhere else in the world. So the way that I first started doing this was with journaling, which is a habit that I will say took quite a while for me to actually implement into my day-to-day life, because it can be hard to sit down and journal even for 5 minutes every day if it's something that you hadn't been doing before. But it's a habit that I built up basically every morning. I make coffee, sit down at my little desk, and I just write in my journal. And the way that I first started implementing this habit was I just told myself I needed to write 1 page. And then a lot of times I would end up writing more than that. And now I kind of just write whatever I want. It's just super helpful to get everything out of your head. Because a lot of times what happens is we keep all of these thoughts and feelings inside of our heads and they're all just jumbled up in there. But once you put them down on paper or you start telling them to someone out loud, you start to realize that there are some strategies you could use to fix the problem, or you could realize maybe this problem isn't as big of a deal as I thought it was going to be. And a lot of times for me personally, it can very quickly take away the stress that I have over a certain problem or something that's been bothering me. I can say pretty confidently that journaling every day is what really made me start becoming a more positive person. It might not come across now, but if you know me in person or you knew me back maybe in high school, early college, I don't feel like I was a super positive person. I kind of just I felt like a lot of times I just complained about things, situations that you don't even need to complain about because they're so small, but you just want something to complain about. And I feel like I saw things in a more negative light a lot of times. So journaling every day started to sort of shift my mindset, because I would realize oh, do I really need to be spending time worrying about this thing, or do I really need to be complaining about this thing? So that's my preferred method. You could, like I said, also talk to someone, and that could be just as good. It could be better in some ways because they might be able to help you come up with ways to solve your problems, or they can give you some advice or reassure you. But the reason I like writing in my journal is because, first of all, there are some things that are so personal and so private that I would not even tell my best friend or my mom or whatever. You want to keep those things kind of to yourself. You also need to be careful that who you're sharing these things with is someone who you can genuinely trust and you feel has your best interest in mind and is actually going to help you try to solve your problems. Now, with talking to someone about your problems, yes, if you have some small issues that you're okay with talking about with your friends or your family, then go right ahead. But I want to stress that it's okay if you need additional support, maybe in the form of therapy or a counselor. I myself went to a therapist, I guess virtually. I didn't really go to her. I was meeting with a therapist for 6 months, I want to say, maybe longer. It was actually so incredibly helpful, even though I felt strongly in the beginning I didn't really need this. I only signed up for it because I found out that it was free with my insurance to have a therapist and have this program going. And I was why not? Why don't I try a session or 2? And then it ended up becoming an ongoing thing where we were meeting once a week and then once every 2 weeks. And then we eventually tapered it off when I felt like I was okay. But that just goes to show you that sometimes we think that we're okay, or we want to act really strong and kind of just push down our emotions, but really there are deeper things lying underneath the surface that we should seek professional help to take care of. I don't think you should be ashamed of finding someone to talk to professionally. And I know if you're younger, it could be hard because you might have to like ask your parents to help you to set up the appointment or whatever. And honestly, I think it's totally worth it to have that conversation because, I mean, if your parents love you and care about you, they're going to be willing to invest the resources into your mental health. If they're not, then I think there are quite a few different programs either through schools or through like nonprofits that can help you find the counseling that you need. So I just want to make sure that I put that out there, that therapy is not something that you should be ashamed of. I think it's becoming a little bit less stigmatized to go to therapy, but still I feel like we're all shy about talking about it, and I just want to make it clear that it's totally okay and it's a super helpful thing to do. Okay, so that was kind of like a big thing. Let's talk more about some small things that you can do day to day, week to week that can improve your mental health. One would be dedicating time each week for self-care. Now, it doesn't have to be like whatever the first image of self-care is that pops into your mind, which for me is like a bubble bath and a face mask. It doesn't have to be that. It could be the smallest little things, like making a couple of meals on a Sunday night for the week so that you don't have to stress yourself out about cooking every single meal. Or it could be tidying up your space at night so that in the morning you don't wake up feeling anxious. So the way I see self-care is sort of just, it's anything generally that's taking care of yourself, whether that's yourself right now or it's doing something that's kind of like a little investment into your future. So when I said the thing about meal prepping on a Sunday, that's kind of an investment into future you, because the future you this week is not going to have to stress about making meals or making your lunch every day, because your past you or your current you is going to have already taken care of that. So it can be these little things. And I posted on the Curious Dancer Instagram account the other day asking how many of you have a dedicated like weekly time for self-care. And it was kind of like a 50-50 result, I'm pretty sure. Like half of the people said like, yes, I do some kind of self-care every week, and half didn't. I really encourage you to try and slot into your week at least one little thing for yourself. Or you can slot it in like little daily increments. So maybe your self-care, something that you really enjoy that you feel is like helping you decompress and prepare yourself for the future, is having a nightly skincare routine. That is something that takes, 5 minutes at the end of every day. And so it's just these little things that I really think are important, because it kind of ties into another thing I want to talk about, which is having, I guess, time to yourself or having quiet time. I think we get really busy and overwhelmed when we're dancing. We maybe are going to school or we're working. We're trying to spend time with our friends and family. And then, of course, there's always like social media to be looking at. I think we get overwhelmed and we don't spend enough time just being with ourselves and being present for even like 5 minutes at a time. And I found that most of the time when I'm having those quiet moments, whether it's like cooking dinner and not checking my phone, or it's doing my skincare, those are the times when I have these like sudden like creative realizations, or I figure out the answer to a problem that I've been thinking about for a long time. It's kind of like that thing, like you always have your best thoughts in the shower, and it's partially because, like you're quiet, you're in this contained space where nothing is like bothering you, you don't have any external stimuli being thrown at you. I think that those quiet moments are really important, is all I'm trying to say, because it can help you to reflect on all of the things that are going on in your life and come up with solutions to your problems, basically. I talked about this just for a second earlier, which is social media. It definitely warrants a piece in this conversation because it's just like such a big part of all of our lives these days, especially because most people are still kind of in quarantine / doing some social distancing, and so it can be hard to not want to be on social media all the time because you want to see what the rest of the world is doing. I definitely find that I'm a lot happier as a person when I limit my social media use, at least limiting it to like a specific portion of the day, or setting boundaries around like when I'm not allowed to be on it. So what I started doing like a few years ago is from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. I couldn't be on any social media on my phone. And I'm an early riser, and so 7 a.m. was like a good time for me. That actually helped so much because, first of all, I wasn't looking at it right before I went to bed, and so my sleep started improving. And then I also wasn't looking at it right when I woke up, and so I wasn't like starting my day comparing myself to other people and seeing what other people were doing with their lives and kind of feeling inadequate myself. So setting those boundaries was really helpful. And then also, like you could do like the screen time limit on your phone and set limits so that you can't be on certain apps for certain amounts of time. But yeah, I think as dancers, social media has a weird role in our lives because you do often, if you follow other dancers, you're seeing their highlight reels on social media all the time. You're seeing people do all these amazing tricks. You're seeing when people win a competition. You're seeing people get accepted into summer intensives. You're seeing all these really good moments in people's lives, and you're not seeing the behind the scenes. You're not seeing all the times that they've been rejected from things. You're not seeing, they did that quadruple pirouette, but you didn't see how many times it took them to record that quadruple pirouette, We're not seeing all of the behind the scenes. We're just seeing all of this good stuff that everyone's doing, everyone's success. And that can take a toll on your own mental health because you're going to start believing that everyone else in life is constantly succeeding. Everyone is becoming a better dancer every single day, and you yourself are failing at certain things, or you're finding things to be more challenging. So it's important to take that time away from social media and be present in the real world and realize that everyone is making mistakes every single day. People have to work really hard to get to those highlight reels that they post on Instagram. So I no longer keep my phone next to my bed before I go to sleep at night. I plug my phone in on the other side of the room, and that's been really helpful because it prevents me from like rolling over in the morning and starting to just scroll on social media, and that way I'm not doing it right before I go to bed either. And another thing with social media that I guess could be beneficial to your mental health would be to simply unfollow or mute people who don't make you feel so great about yourself. And I know this can be tricky because especially I think teenagers are really annoying about this, and how if you unfollow someone, they're going to unfollow you. And you're probably thinking in your head, I don't want them to unfollow me because I want to have lots of followers. I get where you're coming from if you have hesitation about unfollowing people. So definitely just mute them at least. The way I see it is social media is not something that's required in life, right? It's something that you are voluntarily bringing into your life and allowing yourself to consume. So if you're going to be consuming it, try to make it something positive that's going to positively impact your life and not just make you feel bad about yourself. There's no point in doing that. So let's talk about not social media anymore. Let's talk about the real world. What you should do if you are in situations, whether it's in the studio or wherever you dance, where you feel like the environment is getting kind of toxic, or you're finding yourself more and more often in situations that are making you feel bad about yourself. First thing I would do is communicate. As I've grown older, I've learned how important communication is and how it really solves a lot of things that you think are these huge problems. And I know this can be hard when you're younger because being confrontational and telling someone that something they're doing is bothering you can be really hard and scary because you don't want them to get mad at you and you don't want them to not like you, or you don't want to blow up the situation. I get it. But it's better, in my opinion, to just communicate the issues that you're having with whoever is involved and see how things go. At least let them know that you're feeling that way. Than it would be to just let it all go and keep it bottled up in your head and just wait till the situation explodes, or wait until you burn out because you're so frustrated. So for example, if you're in a situation where someone at your studio, maybe a teacher, is constantly giving you critiques or comments that you don't feel like are fair, or they're saying things to you that they're not saying to other students, or maybe they're making small comments about the way you look or your body, I think it's totally reasonable of you to take them aside. I wouldn't do it in front of the whole class, but ask them if you can speak with them for 5 minutes before or after class and explain how you're feeling. When you have these conversations, I think it's really important that you have an open mind. You make sure that you're not like blaming them for whatever is happening, that you're asking questions to try and see things from their point of view and understand why they might be treating you the way they are or why they've done certain things, because I think that just makes the whole interaction go a lot smoother if you come at it from a perspective of like just being genuinely curious rather than being confrontational and trying to blame them for something. Now, of course, there are some times when things aren't going to get solved. Like, there are definitely people who are not going to take that interaction well, and they might keep doing what they were doing, or they don't want to solve the problem. They want to have things their way. And in that case, I think it's important for you to evaluate whether you should stay in that environment or not. If there's one thing I could go back in time and do, it would be tell myself it's okay to remove yourself from toxic environments, whether it's dance or anywhere else in life, because I myself experienced being at a studio for a year or two where I wasn't really treated fairly for a lot of reasons. And there was a lot of just like negative talk about people's skills and abilities. There was a lot of it was just not a good environment, and I did end up leaving, but part of me wishes I could have just left sooner because it wasn't doing anything to make me a better person or dancer. It was just affecting my mental health. So you gotta evaluate whether it's in your best interest to stay there or not. And that can tie back into our very first tip, which was to start journaling. Maybe you write down in your journal like pros and cons of staying where you are, pros and cons of moving into a different situation. Yeah, I just love journaling. I love like lists, pros and cons lists, to-do lists. You can tell I'm like very type A personality. Okay, one more thing I want to touch on, which is like kind of random compared to all these other things, but that is just make sure that you're getting enough rest and sleep. I never was getting enough sleep throughout high school and the beginning of college. I was like rushing home from the studio to do my homework till like 2 a.m. and then waking up at 6 a.m. and going to school. So I was barely getting any sleep, and it made me so moody and just annoyed all the time. And once I started actually getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep consistently and regularly, I noticed I was just so much happier. I had so much more energy in the mornings. I had more energy throughout the day. I didn't feel like overwhelmed as much as I used to. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because just recently, like last week, I had a couple days in a row where I couldn't sleep my normal amount. I was only sleeping like 5 or 6 hours just because of like things that were going on. And I noticed I was so moody the next day. I literally felt like I did in high school. Like I just wanted to get on Twitter and look at all the negative stuff people were saying. I wanted to tweet things that were me just complaining about stupid stuff in my life. And so I felt like talking about that here because it really is a big part of your mental health to be resting enough. And you gotta sleep, okay? Please sleep. So there are plenty of other things that you can and should be doing to take care of your mental health as a dancer and as a person. And if you have any specific suggestions for mental health, wellness, well-being, I don't know what the word is, then feel free to leave a comment below or send me a DM. Tell me what you think. Thank y'all so much for joining me in this chat today. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope to have you back for next week's episode. Bye!